If you have ever sat in your bathroom crying silently and wondering, is it wrong to feel this way? I'm married, I'm a Christian. Maybe even in your early years of marriage when everyone expects you to still be in that honeymoon phase. And you might be feeling like, why? Just why do I feel so disconnected, so alone, so unhappy? Is this normal? Is it okay? Is there something wrong with us? Sometimes we get into these modes where we just think, we should, it should be this way, it shouldn't be this way. And I just want to encourage you guys that today we're going to unpack the guilt around those feelings of dissatisfaction in marriage, and we're going to talk about what God actually desires for your relationship and how honesty can be the very first step towards healing. And so you're not the only one asking this question. And no, feeling this way does not make you a bad wife or a bad Christian. So if you're feeling unhappy in a Christian marriage, if you're looking for Christian marriage help, if you're wondering maybe can a Christian marriage be restored, how to stop feeling stuck in marriage, anything along those lines, this is going to be a great episode for you. Welcome to the United Christian Marriage Podcast, where we help you build a healthy, united marriage that impacts your family now and for generations to come. If your marriage feels disconnected or like you're the only one trying and he just doesn't get it, then you're in the right place. I'm Micaiah, a Christian marriage coach, trauma-informed mentor, and wife of a blue-collar man. I've been in the trenches too, and I've helped women make small but powerful shifts in their marriage daily because it's really those little things that make the biggest difference. And I'm here to help you do the same, without the shame, without fluff, and always with Jesus at the center. On this podcast, we talk about biblical truths that you can actually apply to your marriage. We talk about how to communicate effectively and what it takes to create a deeply connected marriage, even if right now you're in a really hard place. I got pregnant at 17, married at 18, and had to build a life and marriage I never saw modeled. Jesus was all I had, and those early years, they were rough. Diapers, emotional outbursts, and total communication breakdowns. But if we can do it, you can too. So grab your coffee or tea and a notebook, and let's dive into today's episode. Okay, so if this topic already has you nodding along and you're like, yes, this is what I need, then please don't make yourself walk through this alone. I'm still offering just a handful of free marriage coaching calls with me. So book one of those in the show notes below, and we can talk about how to get your marriage from disconnected to connected, from not communicating effectively to communicating in a way where you can actually hear and understand each other. And so I'm ready to help you guys with that. I encourage you to book one of those calls while they're available. And yeah. Okay, let's get into the episode a little bit. So I remember in the early years of our marriage, I had all these ideas in my head about what other people were thinking about us. And it was like it was kind of nonsensical. I mean, who knows? Like, maybe they really probably were thinking those things. Like, I'm not saying that part was like unrealistic. For all I know, they probably really were thinking those things. I mean, some of them were things people had actually said to me in the past, and like, some of them were probably made up, but it was nonsensical in the sense that like I was obsessive about thinking it, not in like a front of mind type of way, but like it was always back there in the back, like nagging me. And I remember like every time me and my husband would get into a rough spot, whether it was just like having a rough day, or we had an argument, or we were feeling a little more disconnected that week or something, I would have these voices stronger than usual, or like these thoughts would be like more persistent during those periods of time. And it was definitely a guilt thing in a lot of ways, because when I was like when we would go through these normal relationship bumps or things, and yeah, some of them maybe have been a little more extreme, like not the normal for everyone, but a lot of them were just little normal stuff that's like very common. And I would just feel like we weren't supposed to be going through it, almost. Like I couldn't accept it as if it was just okay, or as if it was just a common experience when you're getting to know someone and learning how to live with them. And I would just kind of feel like almost like it was like this big secret. Like no one can know that we sometimes argue like this, and we, we're not a shiny, bright, starry, happy couple like we wanted to be. But we were also living in like a very what's the word? Like we were in heavy spiritual warfare at that time as well, so that was contributing to this as well. But and me and my husband are actually planning an episode soon talking about our experience with spiritual warfare, and so I'm excited about that. But for now, I just want to give you guys a story so you can kind of relate to me here, because, well, I have never felt, I don't know that I've ever looked at my marriage and thought like, specifically like, hey, I am in a Christian marriage and I feel unhappy. Like, is that wrong? Like, I've never specifically asked myself that question. But I do remember being in that season where like a lot of things were going wrong in my marriage, and I felt like certain people could just never know, Like it wasn't like I kept it from everyone. There was people who knew, and I was very open and honest with them, and I'm like, yeah, like we never had a honeymoon phase. We really go at it when we fight sometimes. Like we've never been physical. We don't fight physically with each other, but we fight like verbally, or we used to. I mean, yeah, we still fight like sometimes, but our arguments are a lot different now than they were then. And so we used to fight pretty often, and they started like nastiest probably early on, and then like as we learned, we got less and less nasty, and we learned to talk kinder and more gentler. And that was like a process of talking to each other and figuring out like what each other needed to hear in an argument, or absolutely did not want to hear in an argument. So anyways, I tell you that to let you know that it was a journey, for one, and for two, you are not alone in this. And sometimes those guilty feelings like we're talking about today, sometimes they're disguised, like I just explained. Like if I would have just told you that story and not connected it to this episode, then you might have never known that like there was some guilt behind what I went through in that season of like not wanting to tell people, or being like ashamed and like wanting to hide certain parts of our story because I didn't want people to think that like they were right about us, or think that we were making the wrong decision, right? Because we were already so young, and people always have their opinion now. That's the thing. It's funny because the verse of the day was actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but Timothy, when he went into the faith, he was very young. And so he was probably, around 18 to like early 20s. And so the verse of the day was 1 Timothy 4:12 that says, "Don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct and love and faith and in purity." And some of the other translations say, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young." So I wasn't planning on sharing that, but I just thought that was funny to connect the dots there of like, yeah. So anyways, let's get into our 3 points here. 1, guilt isn't from God. Like, yes, there is a healthy, why am I blanking on the word? I'm sorry, guys. I keep like forgetting words today. I'll get back to it. Let me get my mind a little sharp. Okay. So, there is a healthy conviction from the Lord that can take place and will take place if you're walking with the Lord. And if you haven't been convicted in a while, then you probably need to go another layer deeper, because I feel like that never stops, you know? It just kind of comes and goes in the seasons, but it always circles back around. And so that's good. That's healthy. But there's a difference between that healthy conviction that says like, okay, something has to change here, and the guilt. And the difference between these things, I mean, there's just, as I've been growing in my faith, I've noticed there's like specifics, but then there's just these big blanket truths. And the big blanket truth here is that if it leads you back to God, if it empowers you to take steps that please God, if it leads you in ways that align with His word, if, you know, like, that is more like, okay, that's probably from God. But if it's leading you away from God, if it's making you feel ashamed, if it's making you feel condemned, if it's making you feel like you can't turn your face towards Him and ask for forgiveness and ask for His help, then that's probably not of God. And that is pretty much a blanket truth for most things. Like, there's kind of these things in life that are very close to God's design, right? Because Satan is a mimicker. He doesn't usually try to just reinvent the wheel. He actually usually uses the exact same strategies over and over again. And he usually tries to take what God made and just distort it. And so we see that in a lot of things. I won't get into that whole rant, but I just want you to have that in the back of your mind, that like, this is a truth that is kind of ingrained into everything. And I'm sure it'll come up again on the podcast as we talk about like differences between what's from God and what's not from God. Okay. And then the enemy, he will use the guilt and silence to isolate you. And when you go into that isolation, you can grow in things like shame. And shame is a very unhelpful, unproductive emotion. There's pretty much nothing good that comes from it. It's just destructive. And so those are the types of things that like we want to stay away from. We actually, in our coaching curriculum, we have a section where we're teaching you about emotions, and we talk about like what emotions are comfortable and helpful, and then like, you know, the whole spectrum of like, well, maybe this is uncomfortable, but maybe it's still helpful, right? And then there's some emotions that are just, they are not good in any way, just not good, not helpful, not productive. So we talk about all that, the differentiations, and it's super helpful to learn to start to notice for yourself and others around you. Okay, and then there is a scripture to go with this one. John 10:10 reads, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that you may have life and have it to the full." So we see that God does use truth to restore. His design is that you will have a life to the full, right? Like, and that applies to your marriage, that you'll have a marriage to the full. That will include joy, that will include unity, that will include intimacy, and not silent suffering. So if you are in that place where like you're not sure if it's okay to tell anyone that you're hurting in your marriage, or you worry about what people will think, or, you know, what kind of consequences that would have in your life, I just encourage you to pray and pray again and pray again. And not praying specifically just for your marriage, but also praying about this guilt or this fear of man that's happening, right? Like, it is a fear response. It is it's your brain trying to protect you from the fear of embarrassment or whatever your brain perceives will be the painful thing that will happen that could potentially hurt you or get you kicked out of the pack, right? Because like we have a pack mentality and like our brain wants to protect us, to keep us in the pack so we can survive. All the things that our brain does that are good. It wants to protect us, but sometimes they can be outdated and unhelpful. So take it to the Lord. Tell him what's going on. Tell him that you need to talk about it with someone and ask him to send you the right person or the right people to support you through that. And just really get honest about what's going on for you. Because sometimes just saying it, just getting it off your chest can help so much. Like, just create lightness in your life. Okay, point 2 is that honesty about where you're at in your marriage or how you're feeling in your marriage does not equal discontentment, and correction does not equal condemnation. So being honest is not the same thing as being ungrateful. If you are genuinely not happy, you are allowed to say that. And there's ways that you can say it productively. There's ways that you can say it that will get it across in a loving, kind, compassionate, graceful way, in a way that does not need to pull others down. You can say it in a way that is just, you're just speaking for yourself. This is my experience. And say it as nicely as possible. That is a healthy way to communicate it. Now, of course, there is an unhealthy way that you could communicate it that would look more like blaming, shaming. I feel icky, so I'm going to try to make you feel icky. Like, the saying, hurt people, hurt people. When we are operating out of that pain, instead of operating out of a bold faith or standing on God's truth in his word or standing on the power of the Holy Spirit, like when we come from the flesh instead of being led by the Spirit, that's when we'll see these things kind of pop up where it's like, oh, that was maybe not the best way to say that. And that can really affect how it comes across to other people, which can then affect how the entire conversation and situation moves past that. So it's really important to pray before you go into conversations, especially if you're going to talk about this with your spouse, because if you're a wife listening and you want to talk about this with your husband, husbands often feel like very blindsided and they get their own fear response when wives say things like, we need to talk, or start mentioning like something that they're doing wrong. So it's very important that you say it in a way that is going to be gentle enough that it hopefully doesn't trigger that fear response. But if it does, it is like very mild compared to like if you're just sit there and you're like, this is all the reasons why I can't stand you or our marriage, like, and that's not how we want to go about it. I think a good way, I feel like you guys probably need an example here. So I'm going to give you an example. So imagine you need to have this conversation with your husband, right? And I'm imagining a wife listening to this. So if you're a husband, just don't, make it apply where it applies. But so you go to talk to your husband and you need to tell him some things that have been on your heart. You're nowhere near close to wanting a divorce. Like, you're not on that end of the spectrum, but you're just not happy and you're hurting a little, and it's been hard. You feel probably lonely. You go to him and you say, honey, do you think that we could have a few minutes to just sit down, me and you, and have some time together. Now, that's gonna trigger less of a fear response in him than if you're just like, we need to talk, you know? So it's like, and you don't need to tell him up front why you want to spend time with him, but you're just like, I really would like just the two of us to sit down and have time together. And it'll probably, if your husband is one who like tends to gravitate towards one thing or another, then you might need to mention like, hey, like no tech, or I don't want to go out in the yard right now, or like, you know, if he's like trying to like actually do something with you, you can say something like, I was really hoping that we could just me and you sit down on the bed or the couch and just hold hands and talk or something. And then from there, once you're having the conversation, that's when, instead of like nagging or complaining, you can still get your point across, but just in a gentler way, in a way that is speaking life over your husband, right? Because words do have power. And if your words have power, then you really don't want to be proclaiming these things that you don't like about your husband over him, because you're just ingraining them further into his head, into your head, and you're putting it just out there in this like powerful statement. You as his wife have so much power, so use it well. And the way that you can do that, in the example I'm going to give you, is instead of just stating what's bothering you, you can say, for example, I'm just going to, I need to pick something for this example because otherwise I'll be like, what do I say? So let's just say that you're struggling with getting him to help you with the kids in the house. And let's say that you asked him to do the dishes last night and he didn't. And now the kids have been running behind for their activities for the day, and he didn't help you, and you thought he was going to help you this morning or whatever. Okay, so you go into this conversation and you're like, hey honey, how's your week, right? Maybe just like open it up that way and see if he gives anything, because there might be something going on that you don't even know about in his head or in his heart or in his mind or at work, you know. So open up that space. Don't be selfish and just jump into your things, but really like be selfless, be like Jesus, ask him and see where that goes. And then once you've given him time to kind of talk about his week, then you can say, there's some things on my heart that I wanted to share with you. And then you could jump to that conversation, or you could ask him like, is that okay if we talk about some things? And like, that probably won't be necessary for most of you, but like, then just go into that conversation. And instead of simply saying, I didn't like when you blank, you're going to say, honey, so yesterday I had asked you to wash the dishes, and I woke up today and I was so excited to go into the kitchen and to see the clean sink. And honestly, it was just a little disheartening when I saw that they were still in there. And I know you're human, and I have so much grace for you, honey. It's not like you to just forget to wash the dishes after I asked you. So I wanted to see if, you know, if there was something going on with you, if, you know, if you just simply got distracted, if maybe there's a better way that we can handle that in the future so that you don't forget, and they don't end up piling over in the morning. Like, how do you think we should go about that? And then let him have the floor. Like, so now you've done many things. You've kindly expressed what bothered you. You have spoken life over him by saying, it's not like you to do that. Even if that is like him to do it, still say it. Because if you keep saying things to him like that over time, that thought gets ingrained in his mind, and he'll start to think that about himself, and that will affect his behavior. So that's really important for you guys to understand, is that our thoughts eventually lead to our behaviors. Okay, there's like a pretty clear pattern when you sit down and you actually notice it. And so if that's true for us and our husbands, then if the words we are saying to our husbands are then becoming our husband's thoughts, again, that's why our words have so much power. So when you have that conversation, that's something that's about how it should look, so that you have these different components of like kindly expressing what's going wrong, and then kindly speaking words of life over them. Like, I know this isn't like you. I know you're not this type of man. Like, I know this isn't the man you want to be. And then the last important thing was also inviting him into it, like asking him questions. And there was multiple questions there in one. If you noticed, I asked, is something wrong? Like, are you okay? Was there something heavy on your mind? Were you completely exhausted? Like, was something going on with you? Or was it just you really forgot? And if that's the case, then like, what do we need to do? How do we need to implement something to make sure this doesn't keep happening? And letting him tell you what he thinks you should do, that is so powerful, because you're telling him, hey, I actually care about your opinion here. I care about what you have to say. I trust you to find a solution for this situation. And that's huge for them, to just have that and to allow them to lead in that way. I think that's just really special. So, okay, I will get off my little rant on that one. Hopefully that example was helpful for someone. Okay. Just some things to go along with that is that God often does not heal what has not been revealed yet. I won't say never, but I've just noticed usually he reveals it and then we bring it to prayer and then he heals it. So that's why it's important to have that honesty. And then hiding your dissatisfaction also, it doesn't make you a more faithful person. It doesn't make you more righteous or anything like that. It just keeps you stuck. So just be honest about where you are. If you are in a hard place, seek help, seek support, and at least let your spouse know and be praying about it with them. So, okay. And then the third point here is that honesty is an invitation from God. He asks us to be honest. I say an invitation here. That's a very gentle word. I could also say that it is a commandment from God, because he has commanded us to be honest. And so when we are honest, it does open that door to something better. It opens the door for growth. And God commands us to be honest for a reason. He never does anything accidentally or just 'cause. There's always a reason. If God is calling you to be honest, if he's convicting you in any way as you listen to this podcast, then I want you to give God the opportunity to meet you and your spouse where you really are by being so vulnerable and so honest. You cannot hide from God. I mean, like, he knows better than you do what state your marriage is in. So at least get down on your knees and be so vulnerable and honest with him, because he already knows, right? Like, you're not hiding it from him. And I would also encourage you to just ask him to give you strength to be honest with the people who can support you in your life. So I want you to kind of reflect on this question. What have I been afraid to say out loud about my marriage? And what would change if I brought it to God in truth, not just in edited prayers? Just reflect on that. Maybe ask the Lord to reveal some things through the Holy Spirit to you about what you have been keeping hidden, or what you have been hesitant to bring up or to pray about, just let him show you if there's anything like that he wants you to bring to him. And I want to just say that if you are tired of pretending things are fine, or just trying to brush things under the rug, and you're ready to finally get help that honors your faith and your heart, then let's talk. Grab one of those free coaching calls. If you're not ready for a free coaching call, I understand. I know that can be a big step to talk to someone face to face. So I also have a free guide for wives that I will link in the show notes, and you can just grab it. Doesn't require any talking face to face. And it's a wonderful resource for learning about spiritual warfare and strongholds that can affect marriage, as well as some communication we talk about in there. And then we also talk about habits to strengthen your marriage. So it's a very amazing guide for wives wanting to just start to work on their end of things and strengthen their marriage and everything that they can do. So, all right, guys, you are allowed to not be okay. I want you to know that. And you're not meant to stay there. I'm not saying that you should stay stuck by any means, but it's okay. It's okay if you're there. God's design for your marriage includes peace, joy, and connection, and He can still bring beauty from any situation. Even if you're in a hard spot right now, just know that you're not too far gone for God. Never. So remember, healthy marriages create healthy homes, and healthy homes change generations. I love you, and I'm praying for you, and I'm cheering you on. So have a blessed day.